Coach Edwards. It says, the first time I met Big Al was at Joe Wagner Field after losing a 1-0 pitching duel against a guy named Gene Frey and the North Bay Lumber Little League team. It was the first time I'd ever met a former professional athlete. He was larger than life and looked like he could still play. He shook my hand and congratulated me for my effort. I knew he was the Redwood varsity baseball coach, but I had no idea what the future held, along with his coaching methods and life lessons played out in my 4 years as a Redwood Giant baseball player. I was quite the knucklehead as a teenager and was extremely lucky to have been part of the 4 straight MCAL championships, 2 TOC winners, and many, many hard-fought victories pitching for him. I guess as a kid like myself, the discipline, focus on defense, and team play was how Redwood dominated year after year. My congratulations to Jimmy Jones, Steve Compagno, and the rest of the Redwood High School and Hall of Fame inductees. Edward Anderson Jr., 1971 to 75, go Giants. And one last message comes from another man who we all know and a very great athlete, but he can't be here. This comes from Southern California. The great Jim Connor, Redwood High School class of 1977. I would appreciate it if you could give both Steve and Jim my best wishes and congratulate them on their induction into the Marin Hall of Fame. It's a great honor. Jim and Steve are very deserving of this recognition. I feel fortunate to have known both Jim and Steve at Redwood, as not only they were great athletes, but they were both great teammates as well. My best wishes to both of them, and thanks for organizing the informal event so that both Jim and Steve can enjoy the recognition that they deserve. All the best, Jim Connor. Well, right off the bat, I'd like to start off with a quote from the great American novelist named Tom Wolfe. In his magnum opus, Tom Wolfe wrote, "You can't go home again." I think in many ways what we're trying to do today is to go home again. But we can't. Try as we might, we can't return to those days of youth. But I will say this. Once upon a time in Redwood, 1973 to 1977, I was a student at that school. And I was lucky enough to be a member of the 1977 National Championship team. Let me just say that when you enter high school, you are 13 or 14 years old, you have hopes, you have dreams, you have aspirations, you're hoping to make your mark. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But let me just say this. If when I was 14, a prognosticator or a soothsayer or the Oracle of Delphi had predicted to me that half a century later, people would still be coming, filling up a room, talking about the great team that I was lucky enough to be a part of, and the great athletes that I was lucky enough to participate in, 2 of whom are with us today, I would have said, I would take that. Now let me just say a little bit about Coach Al Endress. I think the greatest thing I can say about him is that he prepared us for the rigors and the competition of life. He taught us about baseball, but what he really did was he made us live up to a very high standard. And when you're 16 years old, most people are not forced to live up to a high standard. And when it happens at that age, in your later life, you tend to live up to a high standard because you've done it at a young age. You've accomplished that task. So I want to thank Coach Endress for doing that. I think everybody would agree. Everybody who's ever played for him, at Redwood, at College of Marin, wherever, at St. Patrick's, I think they would all say the same. Now, Steve Compagno and Jim Jones are, to me, I think the connective tissue of these 2 men is that 1977 National Championship team, because they were both teammates of mine on that team. And I just want to say that leading up to that year, Redwood was already a dynasty. In 1976, Coach Endress was named the National High School Coach of the Year. At the beginning of the 1977 season, Redwood was ranked number 7 in the nation. So Coach Travers actually said to us and put it in our heads, hey, if we're number 7 in the nation, why can't we be number 1 in the nation? And so that became a goal of ours that we aspired to. Now this is before USA Today, this is before Baseball America, or Max Preps, and a lot of the ranking systems that exist now. All there was at that time was Collegiate Baseball Magazine, Prep Sports Magazine, and it was also the very first year of national rankings in high school baseball. Now Coach Enders, who was from Oakland, had grown up in a place, post-war Oakland was probably the greatest gold mine of high school sports in America. Just some of the athletes who he competed with and knew and measured himself against, the likes of Jackie Jensen, Billy Martin, Frank Robinson, Veda Pinson, Joe Morgan. So this is a guy who wasn't going to go to a program and try to be second best. This was someone who felt that he wanted to make his mark on a national basis. And so what he did was he scheduled the best competition that we could play. Some of the athletes that we competed against included Ricky Henderson from Oakland Tech, Jeff Ransom and Shooty Babbitt from Berkeley High School, Alan Trammell from San Diego Kearney, Don Slott from Rolling Hills High in Los Angeles. I played in my freshman year, I played in the Fresno tournament, and we played in the San Luis Obispo tournament, which included the 4 best teams from Northern California and the 4 best teams from Southern California. Jim pitched against Dale Murphy and Wilson High School from Portland. Redwood played against teams from Washington State. And the Joe DiMaggio League, that was a famous game in which Tony Gwynn from the Long Beach Jets hit a double off the right center field fence at Alberts Park in the Joe DiMaggio State Tournament off of Tony Giraldes. No, it wasn't. He probably would have struck him out. Well, he would have struck him out too. But I think the most important game we played was against Taiwan in 1977. They had played 8 games. They were averaging 14 runs per game. They had allowed 0 runs. We played them at Redwood High School. I don't know how many people were there, at least 4,000. Some people have said 7,000. It was a tremendous game that propelled us to the national championship in the Collegiate Baseball Magazine in the Eastern Bat Company. And at the end of the 1970s, it was named the greatest event of the 1970s. We gave Coach Enders his first NCS championship in 1977. It's important to note that the NCS in those days was not a regional event. You had to beat the best teams from Fremont to Antioch to Marin with the Oregon border. We were named the National High School Baseball Program of the Decade by the Sporting News, the Bible of baseball. And a few years ago, Max Preps and Student Sports named the 1977 team the 15th greatest team in the history of high school baseball. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me say that Steve Compagno and Jim Jones are both friends of mine, but I think more importantly, they're men that I admire who have lived good lives. They have lived lives that are very important and meaningful to many of the people in this room. So, right now, I think we'd like to start with a video of Steve Compagno. bring Steve up here and have him speak a little bit, let me just say, Steve Compagno gave his heart and soul to Redwood High School for half a century. His father, Tony, was a counselor from 1961 to 91. Steve's uncle, Jerry Pirro, was a Hall of Famer at Redwood, and Steve was the ball boy on the team. He grew up in Larkspur, the oldest of 5 kids with 4 sisters. He grew up 1 minute away from Coach Al Enders. He attended St. Patrick's Hall Middle School. He was a star athlete in Twin Cities youth sports. I would say that he's one of the most competitive athletes that I've ever known at any level. At Redwood, he played basketball for Rusty McManus as a junior. He played baseball for Coach Enders as a sophomore and as a junior on our national title team. He played Joe DiMaggio ball for my dad with the Italian club. And he played baseball and basketball at Marin Catholic, 1977 to 78. And as a senior, one of his teammates was the great Dennis Keating to my right. His coach there was Joe Burke. He was the first team All-Leaguer in basketball, an honorable mention All Northern California player, averaging 19 points per game. Played for Coach Dave Gonzalez in baseball. He had a 13-3 record with a 2.00 earned run average with all Marin County Athletic League. He received several scholarship offers, but he elected to play 2 sports at the College of Marin. There he was an all-Bay Valley Conference basketball player and all-conference baseball player, receiving the full ride to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, where Steve tied Mike Kruko's record as a junior, going 7-0 with a 2.20 earned run average. He was drafted by the Angels in the winter draft, but former Marin Catholic coach Gary Hughes signed him to a Yankees contract. Played 2 seasons in the Yankees organization in Paintsville, Kentucky, and in Oneonta, New York. And I might add that I played against Greg Zanino, my teammate from Redwood, in Paintsville. And Steve, it had to be a tough summer because Paintsville was then, and probably still is, a dry town, correct? He also played at Greensboro, North Carolina, the South Atlantic League from Bull Durham fame. And during this time, I ventured over to Marin Catholic one day, and there Steve was working out with a guy named Bill Bordley, who was a great star at USC and had been a first-round pick of the Giants. He was injured, he was trying to rehabilitate himself. And they were working out under the auspices of the great Satch Hennessy. And the workout that I saw Steve engage in with Bill that day was as tough a workout as I've ever seen. So this was a guy who was competitive, gave everything he had for the game. After baseball, he got into the mortgage business. He started First Security in San Rafael, a very successful company. He became married, he has 4 children. Steve Jr. played at Redwood. His daughter Gina, who played at Branson and won 2 state championships. His son Joe played for him at Redwood, and his daughter Anna also played hoops at Redwood. He was an assistant baseball coach at Redwood in the late 80s. He was the head varsity basketball coach at Redwood in the early 1990s, and he was an assistant hoops coach under his uncle Jerry Pirro at Redwood in the early 2000s. Then he became a head coach at Redwood beginning in 2008. He's the 2nd winningest coach in the school's history behind the great Dick Hart. His teams were unbeaten in MCL play in 2009-10. It's in 39 years since the time he was a ball boy. It had been 39 years since that had occurred. They went 29-3 and lost to the Northern California Semis. In 2019, they were 26-8. He made the playoffs 10 straight years, and 10 of 11 years. Made the NorCal playoffs 3 times. He was coach of the year at Redwood. He was nominated as the double goal coach finalist by Positive Coach Alliance. He coached in AAU ball and won the Fab 48 in Las Vegas. Steve was very proud of the fact that his teams always played a very tough schedule, which included the likes of Salesian, St. Joseph's, and Meade. They crossed bridges to play the best teams. Some of his star players included DeMarcus Wiggins at Orange Coast College, Matt Moreno, who played back east, Joe Compagno at Occidental, Will Breck, who played in the North Carolina program, and Jake Curran, who became an offensive lineman with the Seattle Seahawks. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Compagno. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve's going to speak after Jim. It's like Nixon. Our next honoree 3 is Jim Jones, also a teammate of mine. Jim was born in 1961. He grew up in Nevada playing all sports. I'm sorry, we're going to do a video of Jim. Thank you. Gentlemen, the man to my right, the great Jimmy Jones. He was born in 1961. He grew up in Nevada. He started all sports. He attended San Marin, then Nevada, and then Redwood as a sophomore in 1977. This man threw 7 no-hitters in high school, including frosh soft, junior varsity, and varsity competition. He beat the great Mickey Meister twice in the 9th grade, pitching for Sinaloa Junior High School in Nevada. His brother John came over to Redwood in 1977, and both brothers joined our championship team, our national championship team. And I would say that they became very close friends with myself, many other people in this room, and they solidified a very close-knit team. And that was a team that was people who were friends with each other. It didn't matter whether you were a sophomore, junior, or a senior. Everybody respected each other, and we really had a good year, and it just meshed. It was one of those years in which all the stars aligned perfectly. Obviously, Jim was a member of our 1977 national title team, but in 1978 and 79, it could be argued that the Jim Jones-Mickey Meister pitching combination was certainly the best in the country at that time, one of them, and really one of the greatest high school pitching combinations of all time. Jimmy was 11-3 with a 1.91 earned run average and 2 no-hitters in his junior year against Tamalpais and in a non-league game against Dale Murphy and Portland Wilson High School of Oregon. He was a first-team All-MCIL player. In 1979, Jim Jones was 13-2 with a 1.50 ERA. That year, he threw 3 no-hitters versus St. Ignatius, 1 in the San Luis Obispo tournament, and 1 in league play. He was 9-0 in the league. He batted .447, and he led the state in home runs and runs batted in. When he wasn't pitching, he mostly played third base. He was All-Northern California, he was All-State, he was All-American. He was drafted by the Royals in the 31st round. He could have played with Bud Biancalana, but he chose to go to college. He received a full-ride scholarship to the University of Hawaii, but he was injured. So he transferred to Santa Rosa Junior College his freshman year, where he played third base and pitcher. He was All-League. He was drafted again, this time by Milwaukee, 11th round. Again, chose not to sign. Going to Yavapai Junior College in Arizona, where as a third baseman pitcher, he led the nation with 18 home runs and was an All-American. Again, he was drafted, again by Kansas City. He must not have liked you, Bud, because he didn't sign
Sorry, Jim. Could have had a ring.
We'll deal with that later. In addition to his college play, in 1979 he played with the Cape Cod League. In 1980 he played in Sturgis, South Dakota, the Jayhawk League. And in 1981 he played for the Dodge City A's of the Jayhawk League. I might add that I played against those guys in 1978, a great league. He received a full-ride scholarship to Pepperdine. He played there 1982 to 83. In his junior year, he was second-team All-Southern California Baseball Association. He led his team in home runs and runs batted in, batted .335. He was drafted by the Oakland A's in the 11th round. In his senior year, he was an All-West Regional as a catcher. Now let me add that Pepperdine had Marin connections. It started with the aforementioned Brad Colt, who had played with Steve Compagno of Redwood, and Brad had been on the 1979 Pepperdine team. Then Jim came to Pepperdine. He got Matt Rowe and Chad Kruder to play for the Pepperdine Waves. He switched to catcher, and he combined the position with Chad in his senior year, but he also won 6 games on the mound. But Jim was hurt 35 games into his senior season, but he still made the team most valuable player. He was then drafted again by Oakland. He was signed by Dick Wincheck, who had signed me 1 year earlier with the Oakland A's. He was signed as a catcher, 11th round pick, 1983. Played in the A's organization from 1983 to 1988. And I might add, the A's had the best organization in baseball in the 1980s. This was the period of Jose Canseco and Mark McGuire. It was the foundation of the Nash Brothers dynasty. He played parts of 3 seasons at AAA Tacoma. He played at AA Huntsville. He played in the 1987 Southern League All-Star Game, where he caught Randy Johnson. He played with Larry Walker, Marquise Grissom, Todd Stottlemyre, and the Braves' Tom Glavine. Jim caught many Major League pitchers. He also played, very interestingly enough, in 1984 in Cartagena, Colombia. Whew. Okay. In 1981, Jim went to the Milwaukee Brewers, where he played AAA Denver with Gary Sheffield and Greg Long. He also made a few relief appearances. And I would say that Jim here is an example of just how good you have to be a Major League Baseball player. Because we look at these guys, and we complain that so-and-so is getting the job done. But here is one of the greatest athletes I've ever known. And most major leaguers, most professional athletes are usually the best player from their high school, the best player from whatever town they're from. These are all the guys in the big leagues. And this is how good you have to be to get to the major leagues. Jim was married to his wife Lisa. Unfortunately, passed away from COVID earlier this spring. He has 2 stepchildren, Christian and Casey. Jim has season tickets to Alabama football. Did they win tonight, Jim?
Full time. I don't know.
25 years he had season tickets to the Crimson Tide. He worked in the construction field and the brick industry for 23 years. He ran 3 brickyards. He was the president of Sand Mountain Brick and is recently named to the Alabama State Builders Hall of Fame. And I think you were supposed to go in tonight, but well, you made arrangements to go in last night so you could make it to this event today. So thank you very much. Jim was an assistant high school coach for a few years, gave private lessons, and finally what Jim said to me is his teammates made me a better person and a better player. So ladies and gentlemen, Jim Jones. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to have Steve Compagno say a few words.
First of all, Steve, Howard, really nice of you to do this. It's humbling to say the least for me to be up here. And really appreciate it. It was said earlier, but Coach Endress started this whole mess. And there was just this. I grew up with my dad, taught there, went to nursery school there. I remember watching Gary Latore on the baseball field and was thinking it was godlike. It was super neat. And, Eddie Anderson, and I saw Gene Frey, Marty Frey, Ruggles, Casey, I can keep going down the list, Rob Long, and there was many more. And when I got there, and there was Frank Ferroni, who I idolized as a left-handed pitcher. There was so much tradition, and it was such a privilege to be part of something that was like that. There was a standard. You had to be a great teammate. You had to work hard. There were 100 guys drafted for coaching baseball, and there was probably 75 guys walking around that were pretty good that didn't do anything. So we really learned how to play, and there was an expectation set. And having the opportunity to come back and be a coach at Redwood was greater than playing, honestly. I loved coaching. But seeing all my teammates here and guys that the league was so good. It's just really, it's really great to see everybody, and I just appreciate it. I appreciate all those that pushed me and made me better, and I just wish I could have hit off Jimmy Jones a few more times, because I don't have but it's a great event. Thank you again, Howard and Steve. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve. Very well said. Now it's time to move over, Rover, and let Jimmy take over.
Thanks, guys. First of all, long story short, my brother and I transferred to Renton in 1977. Okay? Everybody at the county thought the Coach English recruiters. They're wrong. Okay? Just so everybody in the room knows that.
I can't hear you, man.
Well, what happened was my brother
You don't have
was
to get
in a
into
run-
it.
Just sit down. My brother got the rundown with Mark Lucy, and it wasn't good for Mark Lucy. And then we transferred down. Coach Rourke, we called Coach Rourke. He brought us in, and we met Coach Embers, who I never knew from the wall. And Coach Embers tried to call Sam Marin and Nevada to get us to take us back, and they said no. Okay, and that's the best thing that ever happened to me. I mean, I told Coach Enders tonight that it didn't matter where I played, whether it was college, whether it was pro ball. I knew I was going to be the starter because I had more knowledge than the people. And Doug will tell you, Doug Sheary, I caught him with the A's. And Ted knows the situation that Sam were in because he was there. He's caught me since I was 13 years old. So anyway, Ted I explained it to him, and the coaches said no. So John sat on a darn tree where the Bradford Pear was, over by Coach Rourke's office by the gym. And he finally told me, he said, Jim, you need to go to class. Because I didn't know anybody. I just knew Doug and Mike and Jerry and some of the guys, Raymond and Ray, Jim Ray, and Jim Brown, and these guys over here, Kevin and Lindsay, of course, Buddy Biancolone. And so I said I needed to go to school so I can stay eligible to play. Back then in high school, it was a 2.0, and that's all I cared about. Right? So when I went on to play college baseball at Pepperdine, wherever I went, and pro ball, I knew I was going to be the starter. You know why? That man right there. Jerry Goff, you played for a lot of coaches. Buddy Biancolone, you did. My brother, Butch. Frank. There was nobody better. And about Steve Compagno, his comment, he probably would have hit me, And if you notice, one of those pictures was the ball Dennis hit off me in the championship game against Marin Catholic that the U.S. Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville, Alabama sued me on. It's still up there, I'm telling you, it's still up there. And Ted Ronchauser will tell you, because he calls me all the time and told me he got the ball and he gave it to Dennis. I said, why'd you do that? He said, man, that ball was hit. And Buddy knows because Buddy's over there laughing. And I went over, and when Dennis came around third base, I shook his hand. Coach Evers said, go play third base, Buddy, you're pitching. I said, okay, no problem. It was it. But with everything being said, there's not one player in here who is an athlete at Glenwood High School. Jerry Kalpos and everybody in this room will tell you, even Paul Camara, even though he went to Marin Catholic, you guys were not better after playing for Coach Evers. That's the bottom line. This honor for the Hall of Fame is not about me. It's about each and every one of you guys. And I told Frank and Ross earlier, I told him, I said, I went and watched you guys. I went and watched Frank pitch a no-hitter against Sam Marin up at Sam Marin. Ross was catching. I never even thought about catching. Okay? I never did.
That a boy big?
Yep. When Frank threw the no-hitter and everybody, I played with one of the greatest pitchers ever, Mickey, and bless his heart, I wish he was here. Okay? You guys, we all know who Mickey was, and there's no ifs, ands, or doubts on it. He was one of the best. But let me tell you what, Frank Ferroni, Butch Bacalov, watching him at Petaluma, it was tough. And then I got to catch guys like Doug Shear in pro ball, got to catch a lot of those guys coming down on rehab, and that was my job. Whenever they sent a guy down on rehab, and whether it was Dave Stewart, Tommy John, or never. Wherever they sent them, where'd I go, Doug? I went with them. My job was to get them back to the big leagues, okay? Now, Pags, I told him tonight, I said, I don't want to steal any of your thunder because you know what? He was a fierce competitor, whether it was on the baseball field or the basketball. And you know, we played against each other a long time. I never had the privilege to play with him. And even when we were in San Luis, even when I was at Pepperdine and he was at San Luis, Cal Poly, I never got to face him. But you know what? We went after the game and had a couple beers because we were part of this whole unity. So when you think about this award, just because I got all the accolades, no. And my mom used to crack me up because I'd tell her, she said, how'd you do? My mom knew baseball, she knew football because my brother, John, and if you had to compete against my brothers, don't even think about it. I mean, our touch football games on the road ended up being tackle football. Okay? And then when we were playing baseball in the cul-de-sac, that was like a bean session. So anyway, long story short, my mom would come up and she would say, how'd you do? Well, I threw a 3-hitter, struck out 10. What? Yeah, I threw a 3-hitter, struck out 10. She said, how come you didn't strike out more? And I said, Mom, I can't make all those plays. Now let's get back all these no-hitters. Buddy Biancalana saved me 3 or 4 times. Mark Christie, wherever you are in this room, you had to fill some tough shoes with Buddy. And you saved me. Matt Morrison, Ray Hagan, Jim Ray, these guys right here. And you know what's funny? When I called all these guys that I pitched to, Ted, Howard, Lee, Lindsay, I never got a chance to pitch to Ross. I wish I could have, because watching him was just unbelievable. If you never watched the guy catch, he was special. And I guess that's why it converted me from being a pitcher to a catcher, because I always loved watching him, and because Howard did the same stuff. So anyway, none of this stuff, it means a lot to me. And guess what? It's all you guys. It's all you guys. Doug Shear played with him in pro ball. He helped me a lot. You know, I mean, and my brothers, you can't ask for anything else. Frank, I appreciate you throwing that no-hitter against Sam Marin, because I ended up at Red. And I got a good baseball scholarship, played 6 years of pro ball, and 4 all-star teams. So you know what? It's worth it. It's definitely worth everything that I went through. And it all started at the high school level with Coach Anderson. With Coach Anderson, I could not have done what I did. Each and every one of you guys, I know all about Gary, Tori. I know all. I got to see Frank and those guys. Anything prior to, I didn't, because I didn't know about Redwood, because we were up in San Marin and we didn't know a whole lot about that. We just played. So everybody who prior to Gary was unbelievable, and that started Redwood in its dynasty. And I greatly appreciate each and every one of you guys. I mean, there's so many people in this room, the Hall family, the Donnie family. They took care of me, you know. I mean, I lived in an apartment behind College Marin. They took care of me, and you know, Raymond, we would go to Raiders games all the time. Mike, we would go watch Chuck and my older brother play at Cuesta, and you know, it was a family, and that's what the Redwood High School is to me. It's a family, and you guys have brought everything to fruition for me, and I greatly appreciate each and every one. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Steve. Now I'm going to turn it over to Matt Morrison. There's just a couple of things we're going to get at the end of the week.
Congratulations, fellas. I would like to ask every member, and you know who you are, in this room of great athletes, the elite athletes and coaches who are already welcoming Jimmy and Steve into the Marin Athletic Hall of Fame. Buddy, you're up. Jerry, you're up. Coach Al, Coach Mike, the members of the Marin County Athletic Hall of Fame, please stand up. All right, Frank Rooney, Dennis Keating, Tony Goff, welcoming Jimmy Jones, Steve Compagno as the newest members of the Marin County Athletic Hall of Fame. We have a special presentation. I think Mr. Ferenzi, Coach Ferenzi, and Buddy Biancalana are going to make a couple of particular presentations of these ceremonial bats in recognition of the Marin County Athletic Hall of Fame. What's it say, buddy?
All right, thanks, Matt. It's so nice to be here and see everybody. This is our fraternity. It's really great. Coach, wonderful to see you as always. You look great. So, I'll be twice in a row back in a few weeks, and don't forget that. So, on behalf of the Marin County Hall of Fame, Steve, presenting this bat, you've been a lifelong friend. One story, Steve Travers did a fabulous job. The one thing he left out was the first time Steve came to my home. And we went up to my room and I had a trophy case up there. And he said, "Oh, you got all the silver plastic cake trophies?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I got all the gold ones." He did me 4 years in a row. And the battle was on. And Steve, as you know, as everyone has said tonight, is a fierce competitor. He's and a wonderful friend. Jimmy, wonderful to see you. One of the most authentic people I know. A great athlete and a great friend as well. We love him, both of you guys.
Bud sounded like he had something prepared. As usual, I didn't. You probably will never remember this, and I don't expect you to. I believe I was a freshman at Redwood High School during a winter ball game or some scrimmage or something. I came up to bat at 5'4", 95 pounds, and Jim Jones is on. So I decide I'm swinging as hard as I can at the first pitch I see. I don't think I saw it, but caught it on the barrel, hit a double down the left field line. The very next thing he does is inside move me at second base and pick me off by 20 feet. Never ever forget it. I was so shocked I hit the ball, and the guy inside moves a freshman at second base. It's pretty cool. Anyways, congratulations to you both, but Jimmy, here you go.
I actually got back from all of I think it's a C271, I'm not sure. That's a corridor?
Want to also acknowledge and thank Dave Martin from Farmers Insurance for presenting you guys with the bats. Good support of Redwood baseball. Before we get ready to wrap it up here tonight, I just thought I would see if anybody out there has any specific questions for Jim and Steve while they're up here. Some of you may raise your hand. You got a microphone. Buddy does.
I'd love to hear from you guys, your most memorable moment as an MCAL athlete.
Mine was when I was pitching a no-hitter against Tam and Craig Goldsmith came up and hit a bullet off my wrist, and Buddy Biancalana came in and made a 50 play and threw the guy in. So I come off the field, Buddy, you know, I mean, and it was one of the pictures in the magazine, and I had an incredible defense, let me tell you. To do all those no-hitters, people had to field the ball. You know, they had to field the ball. Buddy was the first one to do it, and Mark Christie, Matt Morrison, I mean, all you guys, and all my catchers that I had throughout that year, I was sorry for beating the hell out. You know, I mean, and that's pretty much how it was. And, you know, I had a no-hitter going against Frank Kaplan, and you know that we won't talk about that anymore because every time I talk to Dennis on the phone, he brings it up. But hey, Coach and I talked about it. I didn't want to throw a 1-2 breaking ball. Why? I don't want to lose on my best pitch. The best pitch back then was a fastball. Dennis just happened to eyes wide open. The thing was on a straight. It had a stewardess on it. It served alcohol. I didn't break at that time, but he took it. And Ted laughed at me the whole way because he got the ball and handed it to Dennis. I said, why? So I thank everybody, and I appreciate it.
Player coach. Going undefeated in 2010 and only on count for the first time in 31 years as a coach. Probably watching Dennis Keating hit that ball. He just Venmoed me 5 minutes ago to say that. There was a lot of them.
Well, there's a lot of them in this room, and it's been wonderful. We're getting ready to wrap up. I want to bring up one thought, just because Jimmy mentioned Mickey, and we're sorry that he wasn't here. There's many others that weren't able to make it tonight. I specifically, when I watched Frank throw that no-hitter, I was in 8th grade. Tony Giraldos made one hell of a play at first base to save that no-hitter. I remember that. Tony couldn't be here with tonight, but he was a teammate of many of us, and there are several others that are going to appreciate hearing the stories that you heard here tonight. So tell everybody what a good time we had. Drive safe. I think we are still open for a little bit. And Dennis Keating, get on up here.
I'd like to talk about the greatest clutch hitter I ever saw of all time. It's not myself. It's Gary Zunino, who's no longer with us. But I ended up playing against Gary and realizing that he could really ruin your day. Remember sophomore year? I don't remember what happened. But he was definitely the most clutch hitter I've ever seen. I could never imitate him, but I think I got his walk down. Thank you.
Once again, congratulations, Steve. Congratulations, Jimmy. Yes.
So I just wanted to say again, I appreciate everybody being here, especially my two boys, Joe and Steve. Please stand up. Both lovely ball players. And this night's been awesome, just to see all the players in here and everybody. And it reminds me of something that I had in 2010. I found something and it said, one day you won't be an athlete anymore. You won't have those long bus rides with your teammates. You won't have those bruises all over your body. You won't have that routine you do before every game. Your teammates will become distant and your laughs will become limited. Eventually, the one thing you look forward to will come to an end. The one thing you relied on to relieve your stress and allow you to escape from your problems won't always be there. One day, you won't be an athlete. You'll just have the memory of one. And I really appreciate the fact that all those memories got to come back tonight. And it just meant so much to me to play, to coach, and just to see everybody, and just, this is awesome, man. And it's as good as it gets. So thanks for bringing those memories back for me tonight.
Steve and I, We greatly appreciate y'all. I mean, you know, granted, we're the ones being honored, but you know what? Y'all are being honored too because of the fact that you are our teammates. We love y'all. And I'm not talking about my wife right now because I'll cry. Roll Tide. Roll Tide, absolutely. But anyway, Steve and I thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being here. I know a lot of people travel a long way. Andra came from Southern California. Lindsay came from Washington. And there's people here who came a long way to spend this night with us. And I know Steve feels the same way I do. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. And Steve.
Jimmy came from Alabama. Great to see you both, and honors well deserved. I want to remind everybody to thank the folks here at Creekside Pizza, Pat and Janet, Redwood grad, and drop a little extra in the bucket if you see it in your heart. And drive safe, everybody, and thanks all for being here today. We got one other. Gotta tell a story. And we got time to hang out and keep swapping stories.
So, my name's Doug, and I met Jimmy when he got done with Yavapai Junior College, and a couple of his teammates that went to the University of Arizona while I was at. Anyways, we signed the same year with the A's, and I gotta tell you the story, because nobody knows me here, nobody knows Jimmy. So, buddy, you went through Memphis, correct? So you know Birmingham. So we're playing the White Sox in Birmingham one night. Jimmy's the catcher. I threw to a lot of good catchers, Tettleton, Steinbach, Dorsett, Bradley. Jimmy was an unbelievable catcher. He still had that pitcher's arm. If somebody was trying to steal second base, as a pitcher, you got out of the way, because that thing was coming by you chin high to second base. He had a cannon. But the story I wanted to tell you is we're playing the White Sox. And Jimmy and I roll, and we work good together. Sixth inning, we got like a one-hit shutout going, and there's a pop-up, a high pop-up, and all the lights in the city go out. The thought is at, I don't know, it's apex, say it's 90 feet in the air, and it is pitch black, and everybody's just quiet. The lights aren't flickering, it's pitch black. And so I'm on the mound, just what's going on, your eyes are adjusting, and all we can hear is Jimmy screaming in pain. Screaming in pain. Jimmy was my roommate on the road. He lived with me at night on apartments and towns, so we're tight. And he is screaming, so I'm fiddling my way from the mound to home. And what had happened, it was a late, on a pop-up, it was a late swing, and it got Jimmy right in the floor on the bat. Really bad. It was actually a televised game, so we got to see it later. So it's now the trainers are out, the lights on a whole bit. And I wanted to tell this story because you all know Jimmy. So it was about a 45-minute blackout till the power came back on. And there's Jimmy right behind the plate. He took a shin guard, taped it to his arm, because he's not leaving the game. So I wanted to tell that story, that he's right back in the game with this big lump on his arm, and he finished the game. And that's Jimmy Jones. Love you.
Anybody else care to chime in with great stories? Again, thanks everyone for coming. Remember that we've got bills to pay out front, and enjoy the rest of the evening. The night's not over, but the program is. Thanks everybody.